Thank you for being here in another episode of I Am Maria podcast. Today's episode is very special. The power of conquering your challenges with Satyne Doner, which is a pleasure for me to have. I Am Maria podcast is a space where we explore the impact stories that inspire us to be who we are today, showing us how our personal decisions and tools shape our lives. As I told you, today's episode is so special because Satine has inspired me since she opened her podcast and before. And by getting to know Satine a little more, I learned that facing struggles can be tough, but overcoming them can lead to incredible personal growth. By overcoming your struggles, Satine is actually, she empowered herself to create a brighter future and inspire along the way. And that's why now she's looking to inspire more women with her podcast, Women in Restaurant Leadership. Our topic today is with determination and perseverance, you can turn your challenges into stepping stones for achievement. Without anything else to say, I want to introduce Satine, which again, Satine, thank you so much for being here. And I have said enough. And my first question that I always love to ask, and I know it's a very hard question, but that's the way we will get to know you. So thank you again for being here. And please let us know, who is Satine Doner?
Oh my goodness. Well, for starters, Maria, thank you so much for inviting me on this podcast. I think you are absolutely right. Once you start to empower yourself, it kind of opens the door for you to reach out your hand and bring others up with you. And I definitely think that is the case. So this first question made me laugh because it is, we're starting off on a hard one. And honestly, when it comes to who am I think I'm still trying to figure that out. On a personal level, I will tell you, I am nothing without my animals. I call it my zoo. I am nothing without my horse and my two cats. I'm nothing without my writing. And of course, the family that I have sort of made my own found family along the way. Lately, I've been very big into defining what my peace is and what that means to me, and really finding my personal pockets of peace. At the professional level, I think that I've always wanted to be a leader, even though, right now I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that means. I am at the place in my career where I actually just started on my journey, so I'm really looking forward to the future. But I know that I've always wanted to have some sort of impact on the world that's bigger than myself. I've always known that. One of my biggest fears going through college was landing in a job where it was kind of lifeless, kind of soulless. So I'm very grateful to be given the opportunity to uplift others, and it's exactly what I wanted. So I'm very grateful.
That is beautiful. And it seems like family, nature, animals, writing, it
Yeah.
blends well with you. And I bet that some of the decisions that you have taken along the way have led you to open the podcast, which we'll speak about that later on. But that might be one of the decisions that you have taken along the way. Can you name any others that has been like maybe hard or good decisions that you feel has taken you to the person that you have become?
Yeah, so this one is a tough question for me, and we'll dive into it later on in the podcast. I've had to make quite a few tough decisions throughout my life. I think for starters, removing myself from a destructive home situation when I was 18 was probably the biggest decision I've made impacting my life and how it is today. I mean, that decision to remove myself from that situation really changed the trajectory of my life, and it felt like I woke up. Shortly after that, I started college at the height of the pandemic. We were still very much on Zoom. This is in 2020. I didn't do very well with that transition. I actually, fun fact, failed all of my classes that semester. I lost all of my scholarships. And being someone that is very driven, very academically driven, that was like a fall on my face moment. And it totally rocked me. And making the decision to come back stronger, get very involved in college, very involved in different groups, and joining the college marketing team really just helped me get back on my feet. And it helped me define who I was and what I wanted out of life. I think learning how to not say no to any opportunities helped me as well. And then one of the most recent decisions that I made within the past year, staying hopeful, staying patient, and ultimately accepting the offer to take over the Women in Restaurant Leadership platform was very recent decision, but one of the best decisions I've ever made.
That is beautiful. And I see that, it doesn't matter how hard the decisions, and yes, we'll dig into this moments in your life. But I see that you're very positive and you're always like looking to what's next. And one of the motivations that got me into do I Am Maria podcast is kind of to share what are the tools that each of like you with a beautiful story that can share with others. And I'm sure that these toolbooks can change along the way, but what helps you to and yeah, what helps you to on your day to day? How what are the techniques, the resources, the habits that you have?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think you hit the nail on the head. I have always just been default a very positive person. But I will tell you, I am a chronic overdoer. I pour, and I'm sure you could guess this, I pour 110% of myself into everything that I do. And in a lot of ways, that's helped me, succeed and get to where I am today. But, that comes with its own unique set of challenges. So, lately, in my toolbox, I've really had to learn how to ground myself and be intentional. I've always tended to distract myself with busyness. So,
Hmm.
teaching myself how to slow down and breathe is very important. That helps me stay grounded in all of my decisions and really feel confident in my decisions as well. Letting myself feel things fully, let myself feel the emotions and not bury them, not push them away. That's something that's helped me personally and professionally. And so I've really had to learn how to relax and work from a place of security and a place of confidence instead of operating off of fear or insecurity or, anxiety. So some of the things, like practical things that help me do that, are journaling at the end of the day. I'm not very good at staying consistent, but we are working on that. Breathing exercises. So there are times, I am a little bit just by default an anxious or restless person. I think a lot of people can relate to that. So just taking a second, breathing. I work remotely, so getting up and walking around, that really helps me. Spending time in nature. I think nature is the cure for everything, honestly. I mentioned before, I am nothing without my animals. So getting up early, going outside, spending that time with my horse really helps me take my mind off of everything because I feel like my mind is on 110% all the time. So that really helps hiking, walking around. Something that I've tried lately to help me is positive affirmations. I always thought they were kind of silly, I'll be honest, but I started doing them in the mirror. And especially now that I'm in my professional career and I'm getting faced with new situations, high pressure situations that I've never been in before, those affirmations really help me. And then one other thing I would say is being able to escape through reading. That's something I've always done since I was little. That is definitely a part of my toolbox.
Wow. I love that because I feel like you're in a way talking to me and we're sharing. I'm like, oh my God, Satine, I love hiking as well. And I started my journaling journey as well, and it helps me to ground
Yeah.
myself. I was always, and I'm still that person that is very hyper and like go, go, go.
Me too.
And I saw myself that I've never kind of completed a full book, like reading a book. I
Yeah.
love to, the audibles, and I have a tons of those. But then I started to read as well because yes, it's like doesn't matter how many pages you actually get to have in that day, but 5, 10, it
Yeah.
gets you to feel that you can chill for a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I mentioned earlier how I'm finding my peace lately. And I think as I get older, finding a routine, no matter what that looks like, is helping me to find that peace because, like you, I am
right.
very hyper, very all over the place. Now I'm like, okay, let's have a morning routine. It really helps me stay intentional.
And I can't imagine your morning routine with your horse. I'm like, oh my God, magical. But Satine, I also know that you just graduated. So congratulations
I
on
did.
that.
I've got my little graduation bear still here on my desk.
Woohoo! And many for many years. Um, and one of the things about I Maria podcast is about talking to our generation who is, yeah, I can relate to what she's saying, but I also really want to inspire the new generation. Um, I feel like sometimes they don't know what decisions to take in terms of like, I have these big dreams that also comes into big responsibilities, right? And then those big decisions that you need to take in life. So with your recent experience, what advice would you like to share with the students that are approaching graduation and that actually transitioning to what real life is?
Yeah, what a crazy experience that was. And I'm going to speak to the students who have that same drive and they have that feeling like, oh, I gotta figure it out. Because there are some people that I have met that are very chill. They just don't have that anxiety. And I'm very envious of those types of people. They don't really stress about it. They're like, I'll figure it out. I am not one of those people. If you are, that's awesome. I'm jealous. I'm going to speak to the students who are holding on so tight to the idea that they have to have it all figured out. So I just finished this process literally 6 months ago. I went through all of the tumultuous emotions of someone who is spreading their wings for real for the first time and having to answer those tough questions of what do you want? What do you want to do in your career? What do you want out of life? Those are crazy questions that you have to answer. And you feel like I felt like I had to answer that all at once. So,
Mm,
like I said, I felt like I had to have it all figured out. Reality hit me like a truck. Life doesn't really work like that, and I refuse to accept it. So, my advice is to accept it. It's a situation where you have to be a little bit patient. You have to let go of that rope and you have to trust the process. You have to trust that all of the work that you've done will lead you to where you need to be. And trust me, I didn't believe it. But then my life showed me otherwise. So, for anyone that is in college right now, even if you're a senior and you're getting ready to enter your last semester, and maybe you've done no networking, you're not in any clubs, any groups, you're not engaged at all, it is never too late to start getting involved with your advisors, with your teachers. I was very fortunate to have great relationships with my teachers. And for the love of God, create a LinkedIn. I was the only one in
mhm,
my college group to create a LinkedIn. And they all laugh and they call me a LinkedIn influencer and they always joke about my LinkedIn. But that's how I got all my opportunities. And you
mhm.
never know who you will meet, what opportunities they offer, and what will inspire you. So that's my advice.
Yeah, get out there and
Yeah,
and
just put
use
yourself
those
out
tools.
there. And I think
Yeah.
our generation has a tough time, specifically the kids that started college in the pandemic. I think they started at a disadvantage. So for the class of 2020, and those following, you have to be willing to at least put yourself out there just a little bit. Even I know it's scary, but you have to be willing to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And it can be scary, but it's about those little or big decisions that you take. So I want to ask you, because I know you you also just took a big decision, but I'm
Mhm.
sure there's been a lot of decisions that you have taken since you
Absolutely.
graduated. Are you proud of some that you can mention and that you can share also as well with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I am very proud to be able to sort of lead the Women in Restaurant Leadership platform. That is something that, I mean, if you would have told me like 2 years ago I would be doing this, I would never believe you. I couldn't imagine it. So one thing I will also mention is that you need to be in the mindset that will help yourself walk through these doors of opportunities when they open up for you. So when that opportunity comes, you don't have the time at our age to like second guess yourself or hesitate. So all the work that I did in my personal life, and we'll get into it later, and I'm very proud of this piece. I did a lot of inner work to learn how to trust myself, trust my abilities, trust my intuition. It really helped me when I graduated and accepted my current position because even when the path forward seemed really rocky and really unclear, and trust me, sometimes it still does, I feel like I have this gut feeling that I'm on the right path. And so I'm learning to listen to that feeling and not to let like my fears or my insecurities get in the way. So, for example, I have to give a lot of credit to the team at QSR and FSR magazine. I mean, specifically Danny Klein. He really fought for me to get where I am today. So, it was so strange to have a whole team really believe in me and mentor me. And that wasn't ever something that I ever had in my life before. I mean, I truly never thought that I had people like on my side. So I'm proud of myself for like allowing them to take me under their wing and like accept the help that they were giving me. That was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And so, for example, I remember I was sitting down, I was eating dinner with FSR's editor, Callie Evergreen, and we were talking about, my future. And I felt so frustrated. And this is recent, guys. This is February of this year. I felt like I was at a crossroads because I knew where I wanted to be, but it just wasn't happening. And I felt so stuck and I felt so out of reach. But she sat there with me and she let me work through those feelings. She supported me. She treated me with empathy. And I will truly never forgive that moment because if I could go back in time and just 6 months ago, show myself what the next few months would look like, I wouldn't believe how amazing it worked out. So I'm really proud that I accepted that offer and I trust that the universe has my back.
That is so beautiful. So beautiful. It's about how well you are internally and how well you are prepared to receive the opportunities that either you create along the way or that come along the way. So that's beautiful. And I want to hear a little bit about how this podcast
Yeah.
started. How do you get into this opportunity
Yeah.
to run it?
Yeah, so the World podcast was something that Danny and I wanted to do from day one. It just made sense. So the Women in Restaurant Leadership platform, we do have our event, shameless plug, in February, where we bring together leaders of all stages of their life in this industry, and we get together and we connect and we share our stories with each other. We learn advice and tips, and that was important. But we really wanted to create something year round where women could connect with each other and be inspired by each other. So I was already building up our digital stories platform for QSR and FSR, but we thought that the podcast would be another way that we could give a voice to the women in the restaurant industry. I mean, literally, it's a podcast. You listen to their voices. And something I want to say is with the podcast, I'm thinking about it now and I realize that if I never did the work to give myself a voice these past few years, I would have never been able to create this safe space for others to do the same thing. So I'm really humbled and inspired by the stories that women tell me. And I'm just very happy to be the steward and be able to share their stories because their stories, everyone's story matters. Everyone's story is important. And if I'm inspired, then I know someone else will be.
And definitely, at least you inspire me. And when I saw, this is this incredible space for women in the restaurant leadership industry, actually. I'm like, wow, I love this because we have never had a space. It's all about, how well the industry is run and how well the top guys do it and what is the impact that everybody's making. But what about the woman and also, the mother and the many ideas that we have? It's kind of a very powerful moment. I was sitting in one of the spaces that you also led in the QSR conference this May, and I
Mhm.
felt so proud of that moment by seeing, so many people in the space,
Yeah.
but also so many men
Yeah.
supporting this movement.
Yeah, and I think it's important too that we don't really stick to a certain criteria of what a women in restaurant leadership is. We welcome anybody at all levels of the industry to really come together because, like I said, their story is important. And so the platform has really grown from the event to the World Power Hour sessions we're doing, the webinars, the digital stories, the print stories, the podcast. I mean, it's just it's just insane to see everybody connect with each other.
It just started. This
Yeah.
just started.
Yeah, I think I just celebrated my 6 month anniversary. So it's been really exciting.
Well, many more to come. Congratulations for that one
Thank
again.
you.
And I want to get us a little bit out of all this path from your graduation to now real life. But also I want to get into your story. And I
Hmm.
know you mentioned that you took a big decision to remove yourself from a very hard situation. And wanted to know more about what challenges that you face due to these, your parents' lack of support, and
Yeah.
what were those situations that you think that they did not provide? How do you remove those yourself from those?
Yeah, so I will say this is a little bit of a this could be a heavy topic to some. So just want to get that out of the way. So it's not that I had a lack of support from both of my parents or my family. It's specifically that during some of the most formative years of my life, you're talking your teenage years, you're 13 to 18. That's very, very important to who you are as a person and how you are as an adult. I was isolated from the rest of my family who was supportive of me. I was isolated from them by the person who, from birth, we are told is supposed to love you unconditionally and love you the most. And so there are a lot of confusing and conflicting feelings that come from what I call like the mother wound and starting to unpack that and unravel that as an adult and what that means. Again, it's a very conflicting process. And so, again, it's a little bit of a heavy topic for people, but I am the eldest daughter of an eldest daughter of an eldest daughter, and the cycle just keeps going. And so, there's a lot of generational trauma there that stems from so much pain, and it just sort of trickles down. And so, again, trigger warning, my grandma took her own life when I was 16. And I really felt like I had to grow up so fast because of that. I sort of like backpacked everyone's emotions. And I felt like I was the one person, the pillar that was holding up my entire family. And if I broke and I voiced my opinion, I showed my emotions, then everything around me would crumble. And that is a very
Mhm.
heavy feeling for someone who is 15 or 16 years old to
Yeah.
shoulder. That's very, very heavy. So I kind of, to survive, to get through that, what happens, for some people, and especially for me, I feel as though I blocked out all of my emotions, who I was as a person, my identity, it just kind of never got to develop fully because I was made to believe that I had to take care of everybody else. So I believe, I'm not an expert, but I believe this is called parentification, where the child has to take care of their parents, whether that's physically, emotionally. And that really affected me a lot. And to go to your point of when I mentioned earlier that decision I made to leave that situation, you have to understand that when you are parentified, I truly felt like I could not have a voice. So for me at 18 to just leave was a very crazy situation. I never thought that I could have the courage to just leave. And I'm not really sure what the break point was, but when I left, I just had this one day, it's like I just snapped. And I woke up and I had this deep, deep feeling, like deep in me, that I had to leave at 18 years old. You're not gonna be able to have a life if you don't leave right now. So I had to leave for my own survival. And my family, the rest of my family took me in after not hearing from me in years because I wasn't allowed to talk to them. So I do feel like leaving that situation was an act of love. And this is where it gets a little conflicting because I could feel the tensions in that house and they were getting ready to snap. And it's been a really long healing journey ever since. But I've had to learn that you can love people from afar and you can forgive them from afar. But I just want to say I'm very grateful for the support system that I have, whether it's my family that I have now, or my friends, or my work team that have really like taken me in and helped me start to unravel and like, whoa, how did that affect you? And I'm still figuring that out.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this vulnerable moment in your life because I think we all struggle somehow with different situations and definitely this is a hard one. So you're so strong, Satine,
Thank
and you should be so proud. Like I am so proud of yourself to have that power on you to one day decide that you were going to love you more and that you were going to create that support that, as you say, you're still figuring out, and I'm sure it's a long way. um and I want to ask you, what type of advice do you want to give to somebody that is experiencing a similar situation?
Yeah, and so thank you so much, by the way. I think being vulnerable about this is something that's very important to me because I feel like a lot of people do go through this. And for you to kind of make that decision to leave and choose yourself for the first time when you you were never able to choose yourself or even have an opinion. So to be able to make that decision is very hard. So I just want to say this is an ongoing, healing process. And I'm still uncovering the scope of how much those early experiences affected me. So again, I believe it's really important to remind yourself that it's okay to stop and think through those emotions and feel those emotions. It's so important to realize that you don't have to be the strong one all the time. I am still very stubborn about this, but I've had to understand that it is not an act of weakness to ask for help. In fact, asking for help is a very brave thing to do. But when nobody was there to help you your whole life and it was really just you helping other people, it is hard to make that mindset shift. So for anyone who's like in this situation, specifically, with this mother wound, can feel honestly like a mind trick to think the person that brought you into this world may not like you necessarily. But don't feel like you have to suffer alone because I know how isolating it can feel, especially if you do have friends who have amazing moms who are always there for them and always supporting them. It can feel unfair. But just allow yourself the space and the time and the energy to go through those emotions. So you'll feel love. You'll say, why do I love and I feel anger towards this person at the same time? Why do I feel sad? Why do I blame myself? Why do I feel guilty? Why do I feel grief over the relationship that never really happened? Don't bury those feelings because I tried to bury them for a very long time and it will continue. So talk to somebody, a therapist, a friend, anyone. And again, I just want to reiterate, do not blame yourself because that's really easy of a trap to fall into. One last thing I want to touch on is just recognize though that like what you have been through doesn't really define you, especially what your parents have been through. That does not define you either. So when you have a fractured childhood, just know it's possible to sort of dig through those feelings, the emotional like rubble, and you can pull yourself up out of that. You can live a life full of love and empathy and gratitude. Childhood wounds are unique because they take a very long time to heal. Like, trust me, Maria, this is a daily process, but you can, especially with generational trauma, and I think our generation is getting better about this, you can really break the cycle. You can really define your own life's path. Again, you don't have to let what your parents went through affect you and how you treat other people. And you can be resilient. I have that tattooed on me, and that was my first tattoo when I was 16. Didn't really realize it at the time how I didn't think I realized what that word meant until, I'm sitting here now and thinking about it.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. You're inspiring me so much. I feel like really we're having a conversation, a friend's conversation, and I'm sure anybody that will listen to this podcast will just take a lot from this episode. You're amazing, Satine. You're amazing.
I mean, if one, I always encourage people to come out and talk to me. I mean, if one person can relate to this, then I'm happy, because I truly did feel like I was alone in my friend group. I would be at school and you don't really understand these emotions. So I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. So I was at school in college and they had a family fun night. And I was there as working for the newspaper and I was the reporter and I was reporting on this event. And I got in my car and I was driving home and I just started crying. And I'm not really a crier, but I couldn't understand why I was crying as much as I was. And I think like again, it's like a reverberation, like an effect that just lingers and it hits you
Mm.
when you realize it the most because when you bottle up those emotions, they're gonna come out whether you like it or not. It's gonna affect you physically, it's gonna affect you mentally. And so this is early on in my college journey, and that's when I started really reflecting why I felt the way that I did. And it was because I didn't have that family unit and I was watching it happen, and that's very hurtful. So I just, anyone who feels that way, I know how isolating it feels. You feel like the odd man out, but you're not. Trust me, you're not.
And you're touching a great point that it's about the emotions. And
Mhm.
emotions are okay, and emotions we need to feel them
Yeah.
to in a way let them go. It's not only, oh, I felt that, and
Yeah.
if you don't feel them and you don't go through that, like crying, which actually cleans
Yeah.
that feeling, it's so important. And I want to ask you kind of into the same topic because um you're inspiring a person who might be in the same situation and might not, but in a similar. So definitely, um, moving away, loving yourself, giving
Mhm.
that space for the emotions and like moving forward. But
Yeah.
let's think about the like looking back. Would you
Mhm.
change anything? Would you do anything different?
I mean, in a perfect world, I could sit here and I could say, I wish I had the perfect family unit. I wish my mom and my dad were still together. I wish, that what happened to me didn't happen to me. But I mean, I know it sounds cheesy, but I really wouldn't change it because I do think that who I am today is a result of all of my combined life experiences. And, if I had to go through what I went through so that I could help other people get through it, then I'm okay with that. Again, like you said, like you don't have to, it's about releasing. So you don't have to dwell on those emotions, but you have to feel them. You have to let them go. I still feel them. I still get confused by my own emotions. I mean, for God's sake, I'm 22. I'm trying to figure it out, but I'm trying to bring people up with me as we go. So moving forward, even the bad things, they really taught me valuable lessons early on in life that helped me build, a level of wisdom and a level of confidence. And I know going through crappy things sometimes it sucks, especially when you're in college and your friends are having fun and they're partying and you're sitting there and you're like, I'm literally trying to figure out why I had the life that I did. I mean, why are my friends going out to the bar and I'm sitting here crying on a Saturday night because my family didn't show up to the college night? That sucks. But at the end of the day, like I'm stronger for it. So I really wouldn't change anything.
You're stronger, and look at you,
Yeah.
leading
Exactly.
women in restaurant and leadership.
It still sounds crazy. It still sounds crazy when you
Having
think.
a beautiful morning routine with a horse.
I
Come
know.
on, that is so
My
beautiful.
I will tell you, Maria, my horse has, not to get too preachy, but I've had my horse since I was 14-ish years old. Yeah, that sounds about right. 14 years old, and he's been through everything with me. And there's been plenty of times where I've just sat there and cried into his shoulder. And, they don't judge. They're animals. There's a reason why people go and do equine therapy. I feel like he was definitely like my rock through everything. So, keeping him in my morning routine is absolutely like it's non-negotiable. He has to be a part of my routine, but he's been through all of it with me.
That is beautiful. And I feel the same way with my dog, and I read once you go to animals and it's a great therapy because you can cry, you can say anything, and they won't judge.
They do
They're
not.
just gonna be there for you, hugging you in a way. And that's what everybody wants.
Exactly.
Satine, thank you so much for being here. And I don't want to close with just a topic that we had, but I want to close with um great advice, a great motivation quote or comment that you want to share about you in general, about Satine Donner.
Yeah, so I'll try and make this quick. So I was raised a lot by my great grandma. We'll call her Nanny. We were very, very close growing up. She was a writer too. She used to write on really any piece of paper that she could get her hands on, like bar napkins or like doctor's office, like notepads. So on my 21st birthday, my grandma gave me a whole binder full of her writings. And one of them is this note that I have right above my wall on my desk. And so even though she's not here with me anymore physically, she definitely motivates me every single day and inspires me. And I think that her writings, older people just have such a wisdom, and she knew how important this note would be to me. And so I'll read it if that's okay, just an excerpt. So she wrote, "You are heading towards your future. Remember, follow your dream, make a goal, and work hard towards it. Pick your friends wisely and keep yourself clean. By that, I mean your mind, your self-esteem, and your confidence. Be confident in your work, and you will go a long way. God gave you a special gift. Please always use it to better yourself. And if you slack off, you're going to feel a pinch in your butt." So that keeps me going, that keeps me motivated. And one more piece of advice I would say, it's from RuPaul, if anyone knows who that is. It's if you can't love yourself, how the heck are you going to love someone else? And I apply that to everything that I do here at World. I can't be confident. How the heck am I going to help someone else feel confident? If I can't have a voice, how am I going to help someone else find theirs? So, in short, don't dwell on those feelings, let them go. Give yourself the space to reflect. And one more thing, if you do not give the space for your inner voice to come out, you won't be listening when it's trying to tell you something. So it'll just fall on deaf ears, especially for us women. The intuition is strong. Use it.
Wow. Thank you so much again. I think we'll be again sitting together in another episode, speaking a little bit more and celebrating, I'm sure, more of your success. Satine, you
Absolutely.
inspire me a lot today. And I'm gonna remember all these words, especially these last quotes that you share. And thank you for sharing your grandma's message to you and now to all of us, because I'm gonna keep remembering this every day.
Thank you, Maria.